The discovery. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around the exploration vessel Starweaver as it drifted through what the Galactic Coalition called the Forbidden Sectors. Captain Zaraketh stood on the bridge, her blue skin gleaming under the soft lights of the control panels. Her large, silver eyes reflected the stars visible through the main viewport as she watched the scanner displays with growing curiosity. "Captain, we're approaching the outer edge of Sector 7. Announced Lieutenant Commander Drix from his station. The insectoid officer's compound eyes reflected multiple images of his instruments as his 4 arms worked efficiently across different control surfaces. All readings showed normal background radiation levels. Zara nodded, her telepathic abilities picking up the subtle emotions of her crew. There was always an underlying tension when they patrolled these dead regions of space. 20,000 years ago, these sectors had belonged to humanity, a species that had vanished without explanation, leaving behind only empty colonies and mysterious ruins. "Maintain course," Zara ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 15 years exploring the unknown. "Dr. Vasquez, what can you tell us about the research station we're approaching?" Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her historical database terminal. She was the only human aboard the ship, one of fewer than 1,000 humans scattered across the galaxy. Most people believed humans were extinct, but small populations had survived in remote colonies, keeping their heritage alive through stories and ancient records. According to the archives, Research Station Prometheus was one of humanity's most advanced scientific facilities, Elena explained, her dark eyes focused on the data scrolling across her screen. It was dedicated to deep space physics and something called Project Looking Glass. The records are incomplete, but it appears they were studying some form of long-range detection technology. Drix's antennae twitched with interest. Long-range detection for what purpose? Elena shrugged. The files are corrupted. Whatever they were looking for, it must have been important. The facility received massive funding right before humanity's disappearance. Suddenly, the ship's proximity alarms began sounding. Zara moved quickly to the sensor station, her fingers dancing across the controls. "I'm reading energy fluctuations coming from the research station. That's impossible. The facility has been dead for 20 millennia. Could it be equipment malfunction?" Drix suggested, but his tone indicated he didn't believe his own words. "Run full diagnostics on all sensor arrays," Zara commanded. After several minutes, her crew confirmed that all equipment was functioning perfectly. The energy readings were real and growing stronger. "Captain," called Ensign Mora from the communications station, "I'm detecting structured signals within the energy pattern. It's not random. Someone or something is transmitting." Zara felt her telepathic senses prickling with warning. In all her years of exploration, she had never encountered anything like this in the dead human sectors. "Take us in slowly. Maximum shields, and prepare emergency jump coordinates." As the Starweaver approached the research station, the crew watched in amazement as lights began flickering on throughout the facility. Sections that had been dark for 20,000 years suddenly blazed with activity. "By the Ancient Ones," whispered Drix, "it's like the station is waking up." Elena stared at the view screen, her hands trembling slightly. This shouldn't be possible. The power systems should have failed long ago. Then the truly impossible happened. The massive asteroid that housed the research station began to shift and move. What they had assumed was a natural rock formation revealed itself to be something else entirely. The asteroid split open like a flower blooming, revealing the sleek hull of a ship so large it dwarfed their exploration vessel. "Captain, that vessel is over 3 kilometers long," reported the sensor officer, voice filled with awe and fear. "I'm reading multiple power signatures and what appears to be thousands of life signs aboard." Zara's telepathic abilities were overwhelmed by the sudden presence of so many minds awakening at once. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever experienced. These minds felt different, alien yet strangely familiar. "Hail them on all frequencies," she ordered, fighting to maintain her composure. No response, Captain. But wait, I'm receiving an automated message. It's an ancient human standard. Elena leaned forward eagerly. Put it through the translator. A moment later, a voice filled the bridge. It was deep, resonant, and carried an authority that made everyone present straighten unconsciously. This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the human vessel Exodus. We have been monitoring your approach. Prepare to receive a diplomatic envoy. Zara felt her heart racing. A living human military officer, speaking as if humanity had never disappeared. Respond immediately. Tell them we accept their envoy and request permission to establish formal contact. Within an hour, a small shuttle had docked with the Starweaver. Zara, Elena, and Drix waited in the main airlock as the docking sequence completed. When the doors opened, 3 figures stepped through. The leader was a tall man with gray hair and intense brown eyes. He wore a uniform that Elena recognized from historical records, but had never seen in person. Behind him were 2 other humans, a woman with short black hair and a younger man with calculating blue eyes. I am Admiral Marcus Chen, the leader said, his voice carrying the weight of untold years. This is Commander Sarah Torres and Lieutenant David Kim. We bring greetings from humanity and urgent news for the Galactic Coalition. Zara stepped forward, using her diplomatic training to mask her amazement. I am Captain Zara Keth of the Coalition Exploration Service. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez and Lieutenant Commander Drix. We welcome you, Admiral Chen, though we must admit your presence here is both surprising and concerning. Chen's expression grew grave. Captain, I understand your confusion. For 20,000 years, the galaxy has believed humanity vanished or died out. The truth is far more complex and far more urgent than you can imagine. Elena could barely contain her excitement. Admiral, what happened to humanity? Where have you been? We never left, Chen replied simply. We went into hiding, preparing for something the rest of the galaxy hasn't even begun to comprehend. The question isn't where we've been, but what we've been preparing for. Commander Torres stepped forward. Captain Keth, how much do you know about the ancient texts recovered from pre-coalition civilizations, specifically references to entities called the Void Devourers? Drix's compound eyes widened. Those are myths, legends from primitive cultures trying to explain cosmic phenomena they couldn't understand. No, Commander, Chen said firmly. They're not myths. They're warnings. The Void Devourers are real, and they're coming. Our long-range detection systems have been tracking their approach for the past 5 centuries. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. Zara felt a chill run through her telepathic senses. Something in Chen's mind confirmed the terrible truth of his words. How long do we have? Based on our calculations, approximately 50 years before they reach the outer rim of Coalition space. They move slowly, methodically, but nothing can stop them once they begin feeding. Lieutenant Kim activated a portable holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked systems that had gone dark over the past millennia, forming a clear pattern of approach. This is why humanity disappeared, Chen continued. Our scientists detected the first signs of their approach 21,000 years ago. Instead of fleeing or hoping for the best, we made a difficult choice. We evacuated our colonies, gathered our best minds and resources, and dedicated ourselves to finding a way to fight them. Elena stared at the holographic display, pieces of historical puzzles finally falling into place. The evacuation orders, the sudden abandonment of colonies, the massive resource allocations to secret projects. You were preparing for war. Not just war, Torres added. The war. The final battle for the survival of all sentient life in this galaxy. We've spent 20,000 years developing weapons, strategies, and technologies specifically designed to combat the Void Devourers. Zara's telepathic abilities allowed her to sense the depth of sacrifice and determination in these humans. 20,000 years of isolation, of planning, of preparation for a threat the rest of the galaxy didn't even know existed. "Admiral," she said carefully, "what do you need from the Coalition?" Chen's expression became even more serious. "Everything, Captain. Unity, resources, cooperation between species that have never worked together before. The Void Devourers cannot be fought by any single species or coalition. It will require every sentient being in the galaxy working together. And if the Coalition refuses to believe or cooperate, then in 50 years, there won't be a coalition to refuse anything," Kim replied bluntly. "There won't be anything left at all." Drix worked his mandibles thoughtfully. "Captain, we need to contact Coalition Command immediately. This information changes everything." Zara nodded, but her telepathic senses were already reaching out, trying to understand the full scope of what these humans were telling them. In Chen's mind, she caught glimpses of massive hidden fleets, weapons beyond current understanding, and a determination forged over 20 millennia of preparation. "Admiral Chen," she said finally, "humanity has been preparing for this fight for 20,000 years. Are you ready to convince the rest of the galaxy to join you?" Chen's smile was grim but determined. "Captain, we've had 20,000 years to practice that speech. The question is whether the galaxy is ready to hear it." As the Starweaver began its journey toward Coalition headquarters, carrying news that would shake the foundation of galactic civilization, Zara couldn't help but feel that they stood at the threshold of the greatest challenge any species had ever faced. Humanity had returned not as conquerors or refugees, but as harbingers of a battle that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. The Alliance, the great assembly hall of the Galactic Coalition, had never witnessed such chaos. Representatives from over 40 species filled the massive chamber, their voices rising in a cacophony of fear, disbelief, and anger. At the center of the circular room, Admiral Marcus Chen stood calmly beside a holographic display showing the approaching threat, while Captain Zora Keth provided testimony about humanity's return. Council Prime Theron, leader of the Coalition and representative of the ancient Zarathan people, struck his ceremonial staff against the floor repeatedly. His crystalline form reflected the chamber's lights as he struggled to restore order. "Representatives, please." Theron's voice resonated through the hall with natural authority. "We must hear Admiral Chen's complete testimony before making any decisions." Senator Vex of the Korth Hives buzzed angrily. "This is absurd. Humanity vanishes for 20,000 years and suddenly returns with tales of cosmic monsters. We should be questioning them as potential threats, not listening to their fantasies." Murmurs of agreement rippled through several delegations, but Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward from the observer section. "Senator Vex, I've spent my life studying human history. The evidence Admiral Chen has provided matches perfectly with historical records that we previously couldn't explain. The sudden evacuations, the resource allocations, the mysterious research projects, they all make sense now." Admiral Chen activated his holographic display, showing detailed scans and mathematical projections. "Honorable representatives, I understand your skepticism. For 20 millennia, your civilizations have developed without knowledge of the Void Devourers. You've had the luxury of believing the galaxy's greatest threats were political or territorial." The display showed recordings from humanity's deep space monitoring stations, revealing the slow but steady advance of something that consumed light itself, leaving absolute emptiness in its wake. "These entities don't negotiate, don't communicate, and don't show mercy," Chen continued. "They are fundamental forces of entropy made manifest. In 50 years, they will reach the Outer Rim systems. In 100 years, they will reach the Coalition core worlds." Ambassador Lyra of the peaceful Etherian Republic stood gracefully. "Admiral Chen, assuming we accept your warning as genuine, what exactly do you propose? Your species isolated itself for 20,000 years. Why should we trust your solutions now?" Commander Sarah Torres stepped forward. "Because, Ambassador, humanity has dedicated its entire existence to solving this problem. We've developed weapons systems, defensive technologies and tactical strategies that didn't exist 20,000 years ago. But most importantly, we've learned that this threat cannot be defeated by any single species. Lieutenant David Kim activated another section of the display, showing detailed schematics of massive construction projects hidden throughout the galaxy's outer regions. While the Coalition has been expanding and exploring, we've been building defense platforms, weapon arrays, and evacuation systems designed specifically to combat the Void Devourers. Senator Korath of the militaristic Draxian Empire leaned forward with interest. These weapons, what makes them different from our current arsenal? Everything, Chen replied. Conventional weapons affect matter and energy. The Void Devourers exist partially outside normal spacetime. Our weapons target their dimensional anchor points, disrupting their ability to maintain coherence in our reality. The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed this information. Captain Zaraketh used her telepathic abilities to sense the shifting emotions throughout the room. Fear was giving way to curiosity, and anger was being replaced by cautious hope. Council Prime Theron spoke carefully. Admiral, what would this cooperation look like in practical terms? Torres answered. Complete integration of military forces, shared technology transfers, and coordinated evacuation of non-essential populations from threatened systems. Every species would contribute according to their strengths. The Etherians would coordinate refugee logistics, Kim added, consulting his datapad. The Draxians would provide military leadership and training. The Korth hives would manage communications and intelligence networks. The Zarethan would oversee technological integration. Senator Vex's buzzing grew agitated. You speak as if you've already planned our entire participation. Chen's expression remained calm. Senator, we've had 20,000 years to study every coalition species. We know your capabilities, your strengths, and your limitations. This isn't presumption, it's preparation. Ambassador Lyra asked the question many were thinking, and humanity's role in this alliance. We provide the weapons, the strategic knowledge, and the sacrifice, Chen replied simply. Humanity will form the front lines of defense. We've spent 20 millennia preparing for this moment. We're ready to pay the price. Dr. Elena Vasquez felt tears forming in her eyes as she fully understood what her people had endured. 20,000 years of isolation, of preparation, of sacrifice, all leading to this moment. Representative Quinn of the aquatic tidal worlds spoke for the first time. Admiral, you ask us to trust a species that abandoned the galaxy 20,000 years ago. How do we know you won't disappear again when the fighting becomes difficult? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Chen looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia. Because, Representative Quinn, humanity learned something during our isolation that we never understood before. We learned that survival isn't about preserving yourself. It's about preserving something greater than yourself. 20,000 years ago, we were arrogant, expansionist, and focused on our own advancement. The approaching threat taught us humility. Torres continued the thought. We could have fled to another galaxy. Our technology would have allowed it. Instead, we chose to stay and fight because this galaxy is home to billions of sentient beings who deserve the chance to live, to grow, to dream. That includes every species represented in this chamber. Council Prime Theron's crystalline form seemed to pulse with inner light as he processed the enormous decision before them. Representatives, we face a choice that will define the future of our civilization. We can reject humanity's warning and continue as we always have, or we can accept the reality of this threat and unite in unprecedented cooperation. Senator Korath stood. The Draxian Empire has faced extinction before. We survived by adapting and fighting together. If Admiral Chen speaks truthfully, the Draxians pledge our military strength to this alliance. One by one, other representatives began to stand. Ambassador Lyra committed the Etherian Republic to refugee coordination. The tidal worlds offered their manufacturing capabilities. Even Senator Vex, after intense consultation with his hive, agreed to provide the Korth communication networks. As the votes were tallied, Zora Keth felt something she had never experienced through her telepathic abilities. The minds of dozens of different species all focused on a single unified purpose. For the first time in galactic history, fear was bringing out the best in civilization rather than the worst. Council Prime Theron made the declaration official. By unanimous consent, the Galactic Coalition accepts humanity's warning and commits to full cooperation in defense against the Void Devourers. Admiral Chen, humanity is welcomed back into galactic civilization as full partners in our survival. Chen bowed deeply. Council Prime, representatives, I thank you on behalf of all humanity. The next 50 years will test every species in ways we cannot imagine. But I believe that together, we have a chance to preserve everything we hold dear. As the assembly adjourned and species representatives began coordinating with human military advisors, Elena Vasquez approached Admiral Chen. Admiral, do you really believe we can win? Chen looked out through the chamber's vast windows at the star-filled void of space. Somewhere in that darkness, an ancient enemy approached with relentless patience. Dr. Vasquez, 20,000 years ago, humanity was alone and afraid. Today, we stand with dozens of species, each bringing unique strengths to our common defense. The Void Devourers may be ancient and powerful, but they've never faced anything like what we're building here. Commander Torres joined them. The real victory isn't in the weapons we've built or the strategies we've developed. It's in proving that when faced with extinction, sentient life doesn't surrender. It adapts, it cooperates, and it fights. As construction began on the greatest defensive network in galactic history, as species that had never cooperated began working as one, and as humanity took its place, not as conquerors, but as guardians, the galaxy prepared for its greatest test. The Void Devourers approached with their ancient hunger, but they would find a galaxy united, prepared, and unwilling to surrender without the fight of a lifetime. In the depths of space, human ships that had waited 20,000 years began powering up their weapon systems. The silent vigil was ending. The real battle was about to begin.